Hello guys, we are the reporter for week 5 and 6. So, I am Vanessa Orense and my co-reporter Aira, Nadine, Princena. Now I have here the photo showing the girl thinking about Filipino and the boy is thinking about English. So, my point here is we're going to talk about implementation of bilingual education policy with the following topic: early childhood, primary grades, Lingua Franca project 1999 to 2003. But before that, let us first discuss the language policy in education. So, a language policy in education under which two languages are used as a medium of instruction. There are several models of bilingual education depending on the goal pursued, the most common being additive and subtractive model. So, additive model, both language are given the same value and recognition, are systematically taught and learned throughout the years of schooling, and the goal for learning is the development of literacy and communication in two language. While the subtractive or traditional model, one language, example is the first language or learner's mother tongue, frequently monitor language, is used as favor the acquisition of the other language, and it is the second or subsequent language, often the official or dominant language, and its teaching and learning is progressively produced as the goal for learning is to develop literacy and communication in the second language. Now, bilingual education in the Philippines is defined operationally as a separate use of Filipino and English as a media of instruction in specific subject area. So, as embodied in the Department Order Number 25, Filipino, start with letter P, change into Filipino, start with letter F, in 1987, shall be used as a medium of instruction. So, when the Constitution in 1987 was created after the martial law, the bilingual education policy was ratified because after that time, there still has a problem about national language. So, the Department Order 52, Series 1987, finally declared that Filipino start with letter F, not Filipino start with letter P anymore. The Filipino start with letter F will be declared as an official language of the Philippines. Filipino start with letter F. It is in 1987. Shall be used as a medium of instruction in social study, social science, music, arts, physical education, home economics, practical arts, and character education. While English, on the other hand, is allocated to science, mathematics, and technology subject. So the same subject allocation is provided in the 1987 policy in bilingual education, which is disseminated through Department Order Number 52, Series 1987. Now, we have here the goal of the bilingual education policy. The bilingual education program shall be to enable English language learned to become competent in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the English language through the development of literacy and academic skills in the primary language and also English. Aim of bilingual education policy: for the achievement of competence in both Filipino and English as the national level in teaching of both languages and their use as a media of instruction at all level. In order for the Filipino people to perform their function and duties as Filipino citizens and to meet the needs of the country in the community of nation. So always remember that Filipino is a language of literacy, linguistic symbols, and national identity and unity, while English is an international language, non-exclusive language of science and technology. Now, let's proceed to the early childhood education. Early childhood education, or ECE, also known as nursery education, is a branch of education theory that relates to the teaching of children formally and informally from birth up to age of 8. So, traditionally, this is up to the equivalent of 3rd grade. So, early childhood education is described as an important period in child development. Early childhood education emerged as a field of study during the Enlightenment. In recent years, funding for preschools and pre-K has become a prevalent public policy issue. The goal priority placed on early childhood education is underscored with targets of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. It is also a professional designation earned through a post-secondary education program. So for example, in Canada, the designation or EC Early Childhood Educator and RECE, Registered Early Childhood Educator, may only be used by a registered member of the College of Early Childhood Educators, which is made up of accredited child care professionals who are held accountable to the college standard of practice. So, we have here a theory of child development. So, the developmental interaction approach is based on the theory of Jean Piaget, Erikson, John Dewey, and Lucy Sprague Mitchells. I don't know if my pronunciation to their name is correct, but correct me if I'm wrong. The approach focuses on learning theory through discovery. So, here's the photo. The theory of child development, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, recommended that teachers should exploit individual children's interests to make sure each child obtains the information most essential to his personal and individual development. So, there is a 5 development domains. So, physical, the way in which a child's develop biology and physical functions, including eyesight or motor skills. And then, next is social. The way in which a child interacts with others. So, children develop an understanding of their responsibility and rights as a member of families and community, as well as ability to relate and work with others. And then next is emotional. The way in which a child creates emotional connection and develop self-confidence. So, emotional connections develop when children relate to other people and share feelings. Next is language, the way in which a child communicates, including how they present their feelings and emotions, both to other people and themselves. Language, at 3 months, children employ different carriers for different needs. And at 6 months, they are recognized and imitate the basic sounds of speaking language. And in the first 3 years, children need to be exposed to communication with others in order to pick up language. So, normal language develop measured by the rates of vocabulary acquisition. And then the last one is cognitive skills, the way in which a child organizes information. Cognitive skills include problem solving, creativity, imagination, and memory. So, they embody the way which children make sense of the world. So, Piaget believed that children exhibit prominent differences in their thoughts, parents as they move through the stages of cognitive development, which are sensory motor period, the pre-operational period, and the operational period. So, practical implementation of early childhood education. Studies have shown the early childhood education is critical in preparing children to enter and succeed in the classroom. So, ECE preemptively begins closing the national achievement gap between low and high income students before formal schooling begins. Particulation in ECE has been proven to increase high school graduates rates, improve performance on standardized tests. So, children who participate in early childhood education or ECE are more likely to graduate high school and have better score on the test. Or also, ECEC is increase the odds that the student will keep going to schools and attend college. Curricular in early childhood care and education, ECCE is the driving force behind any ECCE program. It is an integral part of engine that, together with the energy and motivation of staff, provide the momentum that makes programs live. It follows, therefore, that the quality of the program is greatly influenced by the quality of its curriculum. So in early childhood, this may be program for children or parents, including health and nutrition interventions and prenatal programs, as well as a center-based program for children. Now, let us know the barriers and challenges of the children. So, children's learning potentials and outcomes are affected by violence, abuse, and child labor. So, 150 million children aged 5 to 14 are estimated to be engaged in the child labor globally. So, in conflict-affected 4 countries, children are twice as likely to die before their 5th birthday compared to those in other 4 countries.
Good day. I am Aira Nadine Princena, Miss Vanessa Orense's partner in reporting for today's lesson, which is Lingua Franca project established during 1999 to 2003. Lingua Franca is words that are combined, which in lingua in Italian means a language, and Franca related to Greek and Arabic frankoi, ifrangi, which means Frankish. So it means language of the Franks. To furthermore explain what it means, it is a language that is adopted as a common language between speakers whose native languages are different. The Lingua Franca project was established during or implemented during 1999 to 2003. It was defined and it defines and implements a national bridging program development initial literacy. Tagalog, Cebuano, Ilocano was the sole languages of instruction used in the Lingua Franca project, which was started by the Department of Education Secretary Andrew Gonzalez, FSC, in 1999. It was chosen to be the sole language of instruction and called as the Three Lingua Francas because the people or the students are using or speaking in this language more than the other languages. The Lingua Franca education project was implemented by the Department of Education's Bureau of Elementary Education. It was implemented with the issue of the DECS Memorandum Number 144S 1999, and it continued until 2003. And like I said earlier, the project is aimed to define and implement a national bridging program to develop initial literacy. It is a bridging program where an alternative curriculum in acquiring basic literacy and numeracy skills was implemented. The Philippines is a multilingual nation, and children have different mother languages across the country. Language instructions in Philippine schools, in as much as the nation building, should take such differences into consideration. Its long and ongoing history proves how long and far the nation has come in its search for a common language, a common and unified identity. So we have been known as a country where we are even greater at speaking in English than Americans, and some of the children, the young people in the Philippines even know how to speak Korean or English, Korean, Chinese, or other languages with the help of the movies, the books they read, and their parents. So, but we often forgot to study deeply every detail of our own language. Like, for example, me, I speak Tagalog and I don't even know how to speak Cebuano and different dialects that we have here in the Philippines, because we are more exposed, or I am more exposed to Filipino and English. So I think that is what is being said here, that we should be exposed more to dialects to the different dialects in the Philippines itself. Implementation of the bilingual education policy in the primary grades. So, the Lingua Franca project was aimed at defining and implementing national bridging program to develop initial literacy, like I said earlier. Then, it is said that the Lingua Franca project was first implemented to grade 1 up to grade 3, wherein in all subjects, grade 1 were taught in Lingua Franca, including reading readiness and beginning reading. In the first semester of the grade 1 pupils, they were taught the oral Filipino, and then when they managed to study it well, when they became fluent with it or became confident with Filipino, they were taught the oral English, and they were given the option to select which lingua franca or language instrument they are going to use, which is Tagalog, Cebuano, and or Ilocano. It is also show there that the experimental group, or those that was taught with their first language, their mother tongue first, was able to be confident, or they were helped to develop their self-confidence, and as soon as that happened, there was a smooth facilitated transfer of learning from first language to the second language. And those that are from the control group, where the bilingual policy was implemented, they didn't ace or exceed in their subjects, only or mostly in English, because that is where they are exposed to for 2 years, while the experimental group aced or scored high on their Civica at Kultura, Filipino, Math, and Science. BESRA, or BESRA, or known as Basic Education Reform Agenda, in 2005 showed that the abilities of Filipino children to transfer literacy skills from Filipino to English were demonstrated in word reading or decoding abilities. But its lack of linguistic or language competence compromised English language performance because it lacked direct route to sense of comprehension. Because of the success of the Lingua Franca project, some organizations or maybe the government decided to continue it, but in a way it's another project, like the first language literacy project in non-formal sector, which was sponsored by SIL, or Summer Institute of Linguistics Philippines, and by the TAP, or Translators Association of the Philippines, which was established in 30 Philippine languages. Another regional lingua franca was a NGO-supported lingua franca project for our youths and adults. There was also a variety of instructional and supplementary reading materials which have been developed in lingua franca and first languages. And that is all. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you learned something from us today.